Ladies and gentlemen, it is shopping season. We have discounts on some very exciting players that had disappointing week ones. I mean, someone like CeeDee Lamb. We'll get to it. We're not going to tell you to buy every single one of these guys today. Please make sure you watch this video. Don't just skim and look at the pictures of the players, because some of these guys are going to be trade targets today, the second you watch this video. And a couple of these guys, I want you to put a little reminder on your phone and say, you know what, maybe we don't trade for him right this second, but when he has a couple more disappointing weeks, then we're going to go out and trade for him in week 4, week 5. But we'll get to that in 1 second. But before we do, go down there, drop a like on this video. I owe you the biggest thank you in the world. How did we hit 100,000 subscribers? Y'all are crazy. Thank you so much. I'm going to continue to go through and answer every single comment I can, at least 200 comments on every single video. And I'm also going to live stream for 4 hours every single night minimum. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you can come out and get your question answered in the live stream. Can't make it to the live stream? Just drop your question in the comment section. But that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into our first wide receiver here. Someone that, dear God, I didn't even like in fantasy football drafts. He was on our do not draft list. Everybody's favorite wide receiver this year, Mike Williams. Now with Mike Williams, I understand, yes, you drafted him, you started him, and you are disappointed. But please do not go out there and sell. And you would think that since I was not a massive Mike Williams guy, Mike Williams, who had an ADP at the end of the year higher than Keenan Allen, you would think I'd be running victory laps here after 1 week going to, oh my gosh, only 4 targets, only 2 receptions, only 10 receiving yards. But at the same time, how can I run a victory lap here? Because with Mike Williams, we've always had the same exact stance, that this is a wide receiver that has one of the highest ceilings in fantasy football, given the 5-week stretch we saw when this coaching staff finally decided to use him as an Alpha X wide receiver at the beginning of 2021. And then we knew they had a very low floor, given the fact that any other week throughout his entire NFL career, he's been utilized as the deep threat option in Los Angeles. So we sat here saying, you know what? Well, they probably want to use him as a deep threat. They probably want to use him as one of those very volatile wide receivers that has the elite level ceiling, but a very low floor. Just give me Keenan Allen. Just give me the guy that's going to get 10 targets every single week in a PPR format. Well, right now, Keenan Allen's dealing with the hamstring injury. So even if I was not a massive fan of Mike Williams in fantasy football drafts, I can guarantee you that now I'm going shopping. I'm at least going to be sending an offer out there, because you have Mike Williams going up against the Kansas City Chiefs in week 2. I've seen y'all down there in the comment section. I've seen you panicking on Mike Williams. People are asking if they need to go out there and they need to bench him. Not only should you not bench him, but I think if Keenan Allen misses week 2, we may actually see that Mike Williams, instead of operating as the field stretching wide receiver we thought he was, is going to transition back over to being that Alpha X wide receiver option for the Los Angeles Chargers and the duration of time that Keenan Allen misses. And I think this is a player that at the end of the day, when you're attached to Justin Herbert, when you have the great talent profile, it's very scary to fade. I mean, yeah, it was easy to fade when people were valuing him as a low-end wide receiver 1. But now if we can buy him as like a mid-wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 2, when Keenan Allen is hurt, when the situation's better than it was in fantasy football drafts, this is a buy low opportunity that shouldn't exist. I mean, I went from being a fader of Mike Williams to now probably going to add him in a few leagues. But now let's get down to our next player here. This next guy, I am cheating. We are going to the tight end position. That's what he's eligible as on any fantasy football platform, but he's pretty much a receiver. We're going to go ahead and we are going to look at Kyle Pitts. Now with Kyle Pitts, drafted him everywhere in the 3rd round. Like instead of drafting Mike Williams, I was taking Kyle Pitts. I even took an over on the Kyle Pitts player prop on Underdog Fantasy week 1. Of course, if you want to go check out any of these player props, make sure you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK when you sign up for Underdog, and they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. With promo code FLOCK, you'll get our 2022 fantasy football rankings. You'll get our draft guide. I know you've already had your draft, but it's 300 pages of information that should be able to help you in trades at the beginning part of the year. But here, anyway, with Kyle Pitts, this was a tight end that completely failed week 1. I mean, you had him going out there with 2 receptions, 19 receiving yards. And one of the most popular comments we had on the first few videos this week were people going down saying, are we panicking on Kyle Pitts? Do I start Taysom? People were asking if they start Taysom Hill. Oh my gosh. No, Kyle Pitts is still the elite level tight end we thought he once was. It was a very difficult matchup going up against the New Orleans Saints. And if we go down and look at the underlying numbers here with Kyle Pitts played 63 snaps. The next highest used player in terms of just a pass catcher in Atlanta was Drake London at 54 snaps. If we look at the targets across the Atlanta Falcons, Kyle Pitts tied for the team's lead in targets with 7 targets for the Atlanta Falcons. If we go back and look at the player that he was his rookie season, this is still someone that compares historically to guys like Mike Evans as a rookie. Juju SmithSchuster, you're getting him at the tight end position. He's still an elite level tight end in my mind. He had 7 targets. What else can we ask for? I think we get a bounce back in week 2, and you still have another opportunity to go out there and buy Kyle Pitts. Now, our next guy is going to be someone that maybe if you're playing in a super shallow league, he's on your waiver wire. If you're playing in a deeper format, I actually like to go through and try to pick him up as just an extra piece in a deal. Treylon Burks. Now with Treylon Burks, love the talent profile. You cannot start him anytime soon. Do not think you're trading for Treylon Burks right now or next week so you can go through and you can play him week 3, week 4, week 5. No, this is going to be a long-term play with Treylon Burks. But if we take a step back, if we look at the fact that here with Burks, this was a wide receiver that had the elite prospect profile coming out of Arkansas. He was a little polarizing, but still, I mean, I know we had a lot of negative reports in training camp. He was dealing with an injury, yada, yada, yada. And this injury has led, in my opinion, to Treylon Burks not being implemented to the full extent that we should see later on in his rookie year. Instead of Treylon Burks going out there and playing 46 snaps like Robert Woods, instead of him playing 44 snaps like Nick Westbrook-Ikine, 31 snaps like Kyle Phillips, don't even get me started. Here, he actually only played 24 out of the potential 65 snaps for the Tennessee Titans in week 1. But in those 24 snaps, the man ran 13 routes. And with those 13 routes, he drew 5 targets. So he's not getting on the field a ton, but we are seeing a wide receiver that was a great prospect now slowly showing that he is being a very efficient wide receiver at the NFL level from a per snap basis. He is a freaking target hog. I think that we get Nick Westbrook-Ikine scaled back. I don't think Kyle Phillips is a special player despite what we saw week 1. I think Burks is the long-term guy. I think it's better to add him too early than too late. Now let's go over to our next wide receiver, someone else that we had on a buy low video last week, Deontay Johnson. With Deontay, I mean, I'm sorry. We said he was a buy low guy. He was one of my most drafted guys right alongside Jalen Waddle. And he failed you week 1. He only had 7 receptions, 55 receiving yards. And to be honest with you, it probably would have been grosser than that if this game didn't go to overtime. But at the end of the day, if we go through, if we look at the usage for these wide receivers, we had exactly what we were looking for. 12 targets to Deontay Johnson. 12 out of 37 potential targets went in the direction of Deontay. Now I'll say because this Pittsburgh Steelers offense isn't going to be good, because Deontay Johnson's more of a possession wide receiver, you definitely want to have him in a full PPR format rather than a half PPR or a non-PPR league. But if we go back to just look at what we had a year ago with Deontay, this was a wide receiver averaging double-digit targets on a per-game basis. He starts off 2022 doing the same exact thing, even though a lot of people thought that here with Mitch Trubisky, with Kenny Pickett, that we're going to lock on to Deontay Johnson as Ben Roethlisberger did. I don't think that's true. I think he dealt with the shoulder injury week 1. I'm going to be happy to go through and continue to look to buy him. And now our next wide receiver is going to be someone that had a very impressive week 1, but it could have been better. Let's go to Christian Kirk. With Christian Kirk, 12 targets for the Jacksonville Jaguars, 6 receptions, 117 receiving yards. And with Kirk as well, this was someone who almost had that receiving touchdown, got tackled on the 1. So if we would have seen him just make it 1 more yard, actually score that touchdown, you would have had a 25-point game here from Christian Kirk in week 1. What's more important is we saw that this target tree here for Jacksonville is not going to be nearly as dispersed as we once thought it was. Obviously, they trade Laviska Shenault before the season starts. And yeah, they use Zay Jones a lot. But I mean, Marvin Jones only drawing 6 targets. And what I was very surprised to see, I thought Travis Etienne could potentially be the number 2 receiving option here in Jacksonville. Well, Etienne only had 4 targets. James Robinson only had 2 targets. So instead of this backfield seeing the continued trend of Trevor Lawrence just checking the ball down over and over and over again, we actually have the target share in the Jacksonville Jaguars running back room maybe being a little bit smaller than we thought it was. Now, of course, just week one, maybe this changes, but if Kirk is able to continue to go out there and dominate targets, I think you should be very excited, especially if we consider the fact that I know they had a somewhat impressive week one, but Jacksonville's not a good team. I think Jacksonville's going to be trailing the majority of games that they play in. There should be a lot of passing attempts to go around. We saw the contract for Christian Kirk. If he's also going to be someone getting double-digit targets, I think that he is probably worth you just sending that league owner a message saying, hey, what does Christian Kirk cost? But now let's go down to our next receiver, someone else that had a surprising amount of targets, in my opinion, Juju SmithSchuster. Now, I am so hesitant to ever bring up Juju. I know we have a lot of new viewers to the channel, and I want to be honest with you. I've lost a lot of money on Juju. After his 2018 season, where he went out there and he dominated at an extremely young age, and then you had no Antonio Brown there, I was screaming from a rooftop, Juju SmithSchuster, wide receiver one. We had some smart people yelling at me from down below, telling me, no, Mason, he's not going to be able to do it without Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown just really distracted NFL defenses, and that's what allowed Juju to shine. I called them idiots, and of course, ever since then, I've been the idiot my entire life. But here, if we're looking at Juju, I think this is possibly the time to buy back in, because here he almost tied for the team lead in targets in Kansas City here with 8 targets right alongside Travis Kelce at 9. And this game could have been completely different. Of course, we have the 2 receiving touchdowns for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. As someone who's drafted a lot of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I love to see it, but in reality, I don't necessarily expect that to happen going forward. I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the red zone option here in Kansas City. And also, if we look at how Arizona was just not competitive in the slightest in this game, I think that we could have had a much higher ceiling for the passing volume overall in Kansas City if they were still inclined to go out there and push the pace of play and have that extremely high passing rate over expectation in the second half. And I know you're going to say, well, Mason, are we not sure that the Chiefs are just going to boat race the majority of teams they play this year? Maybe you would be concerned about that, but hell, look at the Los Angeles Chargers, the Denver Broncos, the Raiders, all in the same division. I think the Chiefs play a decent amount of competitive games. I think they play in a lot of shootouts. And now that we are confident to see that Juju is clearly the wide receiver one here based on how the targets break down, I like the idea of going out there and buying Juju, of course, in a full PPR format. But now let's go over to our next wide receiver. I hate to bring his name up, and this is someone that I do not want you to trade for right now, but please set a reminder on your phone a month from now, a month from today. We will need to be trading for CeeDee Lamb. I understand Sunday night, every single person and their mom watch the Dallas Cowboys just get humiliated by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if you want to blame it on the Cowboys offensive line, quarterback play, I mean, CeeDee Lamb himself, running backs, Noah Brown, you can blame it on everybody. That performance was laughable. Everybody failed. And I don't think there was a single highlight outside of maybe Micah Parsons in that week. Now, at the same time, if we're going to go through, if we are going to project CeeDee Lamb going forward, this is still the same wide receiver you thought he was. He goes out there. He is the only receiver for the Dallas Cowboys to have double-digit targets. He had 11 targets in this contest. Now, of course, those 11 targets didn't mean anything when the Dallas Cowboys could not move the ball effectively. He only had 2 receptions and 29 receiving yards. And I'm not necessarily expecting this to change anytime soon. I think over the next month, with no Dak Prescott, who's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks for the Dallas Cowboys, this is going to be one of the grossest offenses in the NFL. I think you're looking at the Dallas Cowboys as a team that was the number 1 offense in points scored last year to now possibly being a bottom 10 unit across the board with a much worse offensive line, with no pass catchers outside of CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz, and obviously with no Dak Prescott. But that gross month that we are going to have, especially with the Cowboys playing in some primetime games, I think is going to really skew the perception of CeeDee Lamb for the long term, where at the end of the day, this is still an offense that I think should be above average in games that Dak Prescott plays in. And there's still no target competition. Maybe you have Michael Gallup coming in later on in the year. Michael Gallup's able to help CeeDee Lamb by just bumping up the efficiency of the overall offense. But please don't trade for him now. It's going to be gross over the next few weeks. In a month, when people think that CeeDee Lamb is a mid-wide receiver 2, right before we're about to have Dak Prescott back, that's when we go overpay, pay a low-end wide receiver 1 price tag, and have someone with a lot of upside down the stretch. Now, I want to bring up one more player, and I know a lot of people are going to be asking about him, so I just want to get it out there. No, I do not think it's a good idea to go out there and buy Elijah Moore. The reason for this is if we look at the New York Jets, well, yes, you can make the argument, well, Mason, this was just absolutely disgusting. They could not move the ball down the field. That may be true. At the same time, this is a team that had 57 targets to go around. 57 targets. And you would assume that the slot wide receiver here, Elijah Moore, he's going to be the guy that starts off hot. Not Garrett Wilson, not the rookie, not the guy that we love for the long term. It's going to be the player that's already established, that had some impressive performances with Flacco last year. But this ball went everywhere. You had 10 targets for Breece Hall. You had 9 targets for Corey Davis. You had 8 targets for Garrett Wilson, 9 targets for Michael Carter, 7 targets for Elijah Moore, 7 targets for Tyler Conklin. And if we are just mapping all this out, in my opinion, this shows us that Elijah Moore is going to be in an offense that not only is a train wreck, but at the same time is going to be an offense that is not condensed. It's the exact opposite of like the Cincinnati Bengals, where we know the Bengals are only using 3 guys when healthy. They're only using Higgins, Chase, and Boyd. But here it's going to be a rotation of 8 guys. So everybody's getting their small individual slice of a small overall pie. And that's not a situation that I want to buy into. So I know a lot of people are going to be saying go buy low on Elijah Moore. Personally, that's not going to be me. Now, I hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, if you did, go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscribe button. That way you can come out to the live streams. We live stream every single night, and we will for the rest of the season. And of course, if you want any questions answered, go down to the comment section. I'm going to answer at least 200 comments. Hopefully I can get to some more. But thank you again. I appreciate you and hope you have a great day.